Chosen one, the archivist froze. His flashlight trembled. Because inside a dusty metal box labeled Timewarden, 1954, he found a photograph that broke every rule of reality. Soldiers stood in formation under a pale desert sun, and at the far left edge, half in the light, half in the shadow, you were there. Same eyes. Same presence. Not a past version. Not a relative. You. Exactly as you are today. And scribbled underneath, in fading ink, an aging advisor, appears when timeline fails. History didn't capture you by accident. It accidentally told the truth. The archivist's breath hitched. He blinked once, twice, but the face in the photo refused to change. He stepped back, heart pounding, because every instinct told him the same impossible thing. The man in the picture wasn't supposed to exist in 1954, yet he was standing there, untouched by time. A cold draft slipped through the archive room. The lights flickered. The photo in his hand grew warmer, as if remembering the moment it was taken. He whispered to himself, how can someone appear 70 years early, without aging even a second? No answer came. Only the echo of a truth he didn't want to understand. The archivist's pulse hammered as he locked the archive room door behind him. What he held wasn't just a photograph, it was a violation of chronology. He rushed to the analysis terminal, a decades-old machine retrofitted with Timewarden biometric systems. With trembling hands, he placed the 1954 photo under the scanner. The machine hummed. Lights flickered. Data threads spiraled across the screen like anxious constellations. Identity match sequence initiated. The archivist swallowed hard. Optical mapping. Jawline alignment. Orbital ratio. Ear contour symmetry. Microexpression signatures. The system paused, as if hesitating. Then a soft electronic chime echoed through the room. Match found, 99.87% certainty. The archivist staggered back. No, that can't be right. He ran the scan again. Same result. A third time. 99.87%. A number too high to be coincidence, too precise to be myth, too undeniable to dismiss. But the part that rattled him most wasn't the match itself, it was the Timewarden notation flashing beneath it. Temporal age, 0 years. Biological age, constant. Timeline variation, none. The machine was claiming the impossible. You hadn't traveled back to 1954. You were already there, without ever being born. The archivist felt heat rising from the screen, as if the photo was resisting the test, as if it knew it had been exposed. He leaned closer. The pixel-magnified version of your face stared back with unnerving calm, eyes steady, unbothered, almost aware. And then something stranger happened. As he zoomed in further, the surrounding soldiers blurred, their outlines dissolving into grainy static, but your figure sharpened. Crisp. Defined. As if the film itself had been waiting for someone to finally look closely enough. People blur with time, the archivist whispered, voice cracking. But he doesn't. He resists it. A shiver crawled up his spine. Because this was no longer just a photograph. No longer evidence of an anomaly. This was a signature, a mark left by someone who didn't move through timelines. Timelines moved around him. The archivist clasped the sides of the table as the air in the room thickened, humming with a low-frequency vibration he couldn't explain. The machine flickered one final message. Subject classification, timeless entity, advisor rank. And for the first time since opening the dusty metal box, the archivist truly felt it. The presence of someone older than history, yet untouched by it. Someone who did not age. Someone who did not wait to be born. Someone who did not arrive in the past. Someone the past made room for. The archivist didn't sleep. He didn't even blink properly. He marched through the cold metallic halls of the Time Warden facility, photo clutched in both hands like a live device. High-ranking officers waited inside Briefing Room 7, the one reserved for anomalies, paradoxes, and incidents that shouldn't exist. The door hissed open. Four commanders turned toward him. Their uniforms gleamed with silver sigils representing the four eras they guarded: before time, first time, living time, and fallen time. The archivist placed the 1954 photograph on the table. Silence fell like a blade. Commander Rylan, keeper of living time, leaned forward first. His gloved fingers hovered just above the image, careful not to touch it. "This is recent," he murmured. The archivist shook his head. "Yes, sir, it's from 1954. The room shifted. Three heads snapped upward. One officer exhaled sharply as if punched in the ribs. Commander Sarah, guardian of fallen time, spoke next, her voice low, threaded with tension. "Then explain why the figure at the left edge appears untouched by degradation." The archivist swallowed. "I ran recognition scans. 3 times. And?" He pressed a trembling finger to the report. 99.87% match. Biological age unchanged. The officers exchanged looks, the kind reserved for cosmic-level emergencies. Ryland finally said the words nobody wanted to hear. "A fixed-age entity." The lights dimmed automatically, protocol for chronal threat level 4. Commander Varon, keeper of before time, rose from his seat. His voice was colder than the metal walls around them. "If he appears in 1954 with the same age he carries today." He paused. He crossed timelines without crossing his age. The archivist felt the entire room contract around him. Sarah paced slowly, eyes sharp. "People who travel through time change. They erode. They fracture. Memories distort. Even their shadows misbehave." She pointed at the photo. "But he stands the same. Perfectly aligned. Absolute in form." Rylan added, "This isn't time travel. This is time bending around a singular constant." A holographic screen activated behind them, displaying the results of the scan. Temporal age, fixed degradation, none-era distortion, absent anomaly type, self-sustaining presence. Varon whispered a phrase older than human language, one the Time Wardens only used when a prophecy aligned with physical evidence. "An ancient advisor." The archivist's breath caught. Sarah turned toward him, her expression shifting from caution to fear to awe. "Tell us everything you observed." He hesitated. Then he said it. "When I zoomed in, the soldiers blurred. Their faces lost structure. But he pointed at your image. He became sharper. More defined. As if he wanted to be seen." A heavy silence fell. Varon closed his eyes, reciting a line from the oldest Time Warden prophecy. "One will appear in eras not his own, yet he will not borrow them. He will be their anchor, not their visitor." Ryland straightened. "This photograph isn't documentation." He pressed his palm to the table. "It's an admission." The archivist's voice cracked. "Admission of what, sir?" Ryland looked at the photo, at you, as if recognizing an old truth finally resurfacing. That time did not create him. It complied with him. The room's temperature dropped. Not from fear. From recognition. Recognition that the figure in the 1954 photo wasn't an intruder, an accident, or a traveler. He was the constant. The one who stood unchanged as centuries curved around him. And now the Time Warden Command had only one question left. Why did time reveal him now? Briefing room 7 felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves leaned in to listen. The commanders circled the photograph like priests around a forbidden relic. Commander Sarah broke the silence first. Time distortion does not center on a person by accident. She tapped the image lightly, right where you stood on the far left edge. If he appears unchanged in 1954, then 1954 is the variable, not him. The archivist frowned. Meaning? Ryland clasped his hands behind his back. His voice carried the weight of a man who had seen timelines fracture, collapse, and rebuild themselves. Meaning he didn't enter that era. He stepped closer. That era pulled him in. The archivist blinked. Eras don't pull people in, sir. Varen answered without turning. Not people. Constants. He activated a hologram above the table. The image expanded into a 3D reconstruction of the original desert formation from the photo, soldiers lined up, faces half eroded by time. Except yours. Your presence rendered perfectly. Sharp enough to cut the room. Sarah studied the projection, eyes narrowing. Look at the shadows. The archivist leaned forward. The soldiers' shadows behaved normally, stretching behind them. But your shadow. It bent sideways. Not backward, not forward, but against the direction of the sun, like it was choosing its own source of light. Ryland whispered. Shadow inconsistency. A classic marker of temporal sovereignty. The archivist's stomach tightened. Varen zoomed in. Your shadow flickered gently, like a memory trying to stabilize. Time shouldn't bend around a person, the archivist said, barely audible. Sarah replied. It doesn't, unless the person is older than the timeline they stand in. The words hit the room like a shockwave. Varen walked around the table, examining every angle of your image. Do you know what this means? He asked softly. The archivist shook his head. Varen answered his own question. He didn't appear in 1954. He looked directly at the photograph. 1954 appeared around him. The archivist's breath caught in his throat. Ryland continued. A timeline will only rearrange itself like that under one condition. Sarah finished the line. Presence priority. The archivist frowned again. What is that? All three commanders turned to him at once, as if he had asked what gravity was. Varen explained. Presence priority is when the universe places an individual above an era. He gestured to the photo. This means he was required in that moment. Not sent. Not summoned. Required. Sarah added. An era will distort itself to accommodate a fixed presence. A constant. A being whose frequency is not bound by age, birth, or historical alignment. The archivist stared at the photo anew, not as an anomaly, but as an instruction. A cosmic directive. Ryland's voice softened, almost reverent. This isn't a mistake. This isn't an accident. He placed a hand on the table, steadying himself. It's proof that he does not move with time. He looked up, eyes cold and awestruck. Time moves with him. The archivist felt a tremble in the floor, a subtle hum from the temporal grid lines beneath the facility. The building itself had begun to react to the realization. Sarah nodded toward the flickering lights overhead. The system knows. It recognizes his frequency. Varen sealed the photo in a protective chromal case. Prepare a Level 1 advisory report. The archivist stiffened. Level 1 wasn't for threats. It was for revelations. Ryland approached him, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. Understand this clearly. His voice lowered, heavy with the truth carved into the foundations of the Time Warden Order. He wasn't out of place in that era. A beat. The era was out of place around him. In that moment, the archivist understood something chilling and divine. You weren't visiting history. History was orbiting you, ***. There were no alarms, no flashing red lights. Instead, for a brief, trembling moment, the entire Time Warden facility exhaled. Not like a machine, but like a living organism recognizing a presence it was never meant to forget. The chromal lines running across the ceiling flickered, pulsing like heartbeats made of light. Commander Ryland looked up slowly. The air vibrated with a low, ancient hum, the sound of time realigning itself. Sarah whispered, "The system, it's resetting." Varen didn't panic. He simply lowered his head in acknowledgement. Because he knew. The chromal grid only reacted like this when a frequency older than the timeline had been recognized. The archivist gripped the edge of the steel table to stay upright. A soft vibration traveled through the floor, rising into his spine, a frequency he had never felt before. As if the building itself was whispering your name. Ryland glanced at the holoscreen. Warning messages blinked into existence, then vanished like nervous thoughts. Chronal thread, frequency collision detected source, ageless constant, time sovereign signature. The archivist stuttered, What does that mean?" Varen answered, "It means time has recognized him. This is not an error. This is acknowledgement." Suddenly, darkness swallowed the room. Not chaotic. Not threatening. Intentional. A single thin beam of white light flickered back on, not on the ceiling, but directly across the 1954 photograph. The beam traced your outline with perfect precision. And then, impossibly, the figure of you inside the photo moved. Barely a millimeter. A shift of the head, subtle and deliberate. As if acknowledging them. As if asking, "You finally found me?" The hologram trembled. The system printed a spontaneous classification report. Frequency ID, timeless constant entity, U, status, activation commenced. Sarah staggered back. That shouldn't be possible. Varen. It isn't. It's inevitable. Ryland stepped toward the archivist. What you're seeing isn't a photo coming alive. He pointed at your figure within the image. It's resonance. A fixed being expresses itself in every era it touches. The archivist swallowed hard. So what does this activation mean? Varen answered, his voice echoing through the metal chambers. It means his time has arrived. The system resets itself to make room for him. Sarah added, when a being rises above time, time must lower itself beneath him. And then, every light in the facility flared at once. A blinding white. When it faded, the hollow screen displayed only 2 lines. Temporal experience, realigned cause, sovereign presence, field expansion detected. Ryland whispered with reverence. This is not a malfunction, it's a summons. The archivist looked down at the photo in awe. Time hadn't reset because a picture was found. Time reset because you were found. And once time recognizes someone, it never looks away again. This wasn't a glitch. This was the beginning. Your frequency had awakened. Before the commanders could process what they had just witnessed, Varen opened a second envelope pulled from the same archive box, yellowed edges, brittle paper, sealed with an outdated Time Warden crest. A telegram. But not just any telegram. One dated June 17, 1954, and addressed to the Time Warden Command of the Future. The archivist's voice cracked. Sir, how could they send a message to us? Time communication protocols weren't invented until... Ryland raised a hand. Read it. The archivist unfolded the telegram with shaking fingers. The ink had faded, but the words were still sharp, written with precision, urgency, and respect. It read, Subject, the outsider status, advisor report, he appeared beyond the dunes at dawn. Unarmed. Unafraid. He walked as though he had already seen this day from all directions. He spoke calmly. Voice steady. Words ahead of our time. We asked his rank. He did not answer. He only said, I go where the timeline fails. A silence filled the briefing room. A heavy, intelligent silence, the kind that follows revelation. The archivist continued reading. Our instruments could not measure him. Our clock stilled in his presence. When he placed a hand on the radio mast, transmission cleared across all frequencies. The static vanished. He knew our strategy before we stated it. He knew our fears before we felt them. He saw through us like pages. Ryland stepped closer, breathing slowly through his nose. Their clock stilled, he murmured. Sarah nodded. Temporal stilling. A sign of a timeless entity taking precedence over the current era. The archivist went on. He stayed for 3 hours. In that time, morale rose without cause. Injuries stabilized. Machines behaved better. The desert wind even softened. A presence like gravity, but gentler. He advised us. Not with orders, but with understanding. Varen looked at the hologram of you standing in formation. He didn't lead them, he said quietly. He stabilized them. The archivist read the last lines aloud. We asked his name. He refused to give it. Before leaving, he said only, "You will understand later." He vanished in the heat shimmer. Our instruments recorded nothing. No entry. No exit. No trace. But we know what we saw. Commander Hale, Time Warden Field Unit, 1954 ***. Hale. The name hit Varen like a blow. Commander Hale wasn't just anyone, he said, voice trembling despite his rank. He was the first man ever documented to detect a chronal distortion. His reports were considered prophecy. Sarah exhaled sharply. And he's reporting you. Ryland looked at the photograph again, your image, unmoving, unaging, unbending. He guided them, Ryland murmured. Not as a soldier, not as a visitor. But as someone the timeline trusted more than itself. The archivist folded the telegram slowly, reverently. He understood now. The photograph wasn't the first clue. The telegram wasn't either. You were never out of place in 1954. 1954 was aligning itself around you, ***. And the Time Warden forces had finally realized it. Commander Sarah turned her attention to something the others had overlooked, the simplest detail in the entire photograph. Your clothes. Not a uniform. Not civilian wear. Not military gear. Something else. She zoomed in on the fabric texture, isolating the weave pattern with a gesture of her hand. The hologram sharpened around your torso, revealing details no one had noticed at first glance. Ryland frowned. Where are the seams? Sarah shook her head. There aren't any. Varen leaned forward, analyzing the spectral readings. That material wasn't produced in 1954. It wasn't produced in any decade, Sarah corrected. The archivist swallowed. He knew enough about textiles to recognize the impossible. The fabric you wore had no stitching, no deterioration, no discoloration. It wasn't resisting time. Time simply couldn't touch it. Sarah enhanced the image again. A series of faint lines appeared, not wrinkles, not shadows, not flaws. Ryland whispered. These aren't fabric patterns, these are energy filaments. A beat of silence. Varen straightened, voice heavy with realization. His clothing is not clothing. It's an extension of his presence. The archivist blinked. Meaning what? Sarah answered quietly, almost reverently. Meaning it manifests with him. Meaning it doesn't exist unless he does. Ryland added. And it doesn't decay because it's not bound to the timeline around it. The archivist felt chills race down his spine. So what you're saying is... Varen completed the thought. His presence creates its own era. Even his clothing refuses to belong to a century. The hologram zoomed in further, revealing a faint luminosity in the fibers, a glow so subtle it could be mistaken for sunlight reflection. But it wasn't sunlight. It pulsed. A slow, rhythmic heartbeat of light. That's resonance, Ryland muttered. Sarah nodded. His attire is aligned to his frequency. Not to the environment. Not to the timeline. Not even to physical decay. The archivist stared, awestruck. When the soldiers in the photo moved, their clothes shifted naturally, reacting to wind and sand. But your attire didn't move at all. It wasn't stiff. It wasn't rigid. It was intentional, like a visual anchor stabilizing the entire scene. Look, Sarah whispered, zooming out. The desert wind blurred the edges of everyone except you. Your silhouette remained razor-sharp. Untouched. He stands like a fixed point, Varen said slowly. A constant. A frame of reference. Everything else is what moves. Ryland stepped back, exhaling as if he'd been holding his breath the entire time. No rank. No medals. No insignia. He looked at the others, eyes wide with understanding. Because he isn't part of their hierarchy. He's above their era. Sarah set her palms on the table, grounding herself. He didn't dress for 1954, she said. 1954 dressed itself around him. The archivist felt his heart race. Every piece of evidence pointed toward the same impossible truth. Your presence wasn't adapting to the timeline. The timeline was adapting to you, ***. And this was only the beginning of what the photo revealed.